All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Six Pack and a Passport. I'm happy to have you guys. You know, this is all about making sure we take this one body, this one earth, and this one time that we have here on this earth and maximize it to the fullest. So, doing that, I recently just did a talk about are you training before you train, and how do you train before you actually train? It's a short form content that I did, so if you haven't checked it out, just go to YouTube and you can see that, or on my Instagram, Six Pack and a Passport. I got a lot of great responses from this short form content. A lot of people were asking what I mean. Some people were saying they do, which is great. But the people who were asking about what do I mean when I say, are you training before you train, and how do you train before you train? Let's talk about the dynamic of what I'm speaking on. A lot of times we focus so much on just the actual activity in which we're in. So let me say, if you are a basketball player, right? And you have practice, and you're on a team sport, you practice. So you normally go for 2 hours of practice. You normally focus on how well you're going to do in that 2 hours of practice. If you're just kind of basic, right? As far as, just your thought of, okay, I'm just going to really get ready for practice, and that's going to be the thing that's going to get me ready for the game. Well, when you're a pro, though, you have all this free time. It's like, well, okay, yeah, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours of practice. And after that, I got the rest of the day to myself, right? Well, what pros do, though, the real pros, they actually take time to train themselves for training for the game. They take other time, and the one who really made it the most famous right now in the past 20 years has been Mr. Kobe Bryant before his passing, right? His whole thing was he would get up early a.m., 3 o'clock in the morning, work out for an hour and a half, 2 hours, take breakfast, and then take a quick nap, then come back and go to team practice, right? Stay longer after team practice, take it, get dinner or whatever, and then take a nap, then come back and do a late night practice, right? So he was practicing before he actually had to practice. And, with the mama effect and everything, he did it with intensity, right? Well, a lot of successful people, that's what they do. They train before they actually have to train. I do it myself. I make sure before I come on these presentations or before I do anything, to the world, I'm doing it on the back end before the actual moment of the actual game or their presentation, right? But I also do it before I actually practice. So before I actually do a practice run through, I actually have to do the research. I have to do a sample walkthrough. Entertainers do it. People do this. You have to make sure you're preparing yourself. Basically, what it boils down to is preparation before the preparation to get into the actual show. Okay. So when it comes down to your exercise, when it comes down to your training, you're a layman person just trying to have, the next level of health and wellness for yourself, right? You're like, well, Mark, my time is tight. I work a full-time career. I have a family. I have kids. I have responsibilities. This is all true, and nobody's negating that. Most of us in 2022 now have that, right? There's a lot going on. But what you have to understand, if you want to be excellent, and we're talking about for yourself, for your body, for this one vessel that we have, right? You have to do the prerequisite work. You have to do the training before you actually get to the training. What good does it do you? This is the thing. With that same vein that your time is limited, right? What good does it do you to go to the gym, if that's what you're doing, to work out for, say, 60 minutes, and it's a bad 60 minutes? Why waste your time like that, right? It behooves you to do the pre-training, train before you get to the training, do your research, ask the questions, hire a trainer, make sure if your goal is to get bigger chest or bigger back or, bigger thighs, make sure you're doing the research on what routines work best for that, what routines work best for your shoulder impingement, what works best to make sure if you have lower lumbar or mid-thoracic pains, do your research. So therefore you can improve upon that. So when you get to that actual hour, which is very minimal time, and you have to maximize your efforts, you want to make sure you do that. So we can give excuses all day and say, well, I can't because of this, or I can't because of that. Well, then you won't. The old saying is what? He who says he can. He who says she can't. She who says she can. She who says she can't. It's the same thing. practice or train before you actually get into your training. When you do this, when you get to that hour, when you get to that 60 minutes, you make it the most impactful 60 minutes possible. By doing so, the eventual growth that you want to see will come. But if it's a wasted 60 minutes, this is why we're not seeing the gains we want to see, because we haven't trained properly before we got to the training session, and we want everything to happen within that training session. And we do, 3 weeks straight of just, 3 days a week. This is 90 or, whatever it is, 120 minutes given, times 2, right, for 2 weeks. And we're like, why don't I see results? Because you didn't do enough pre-training to get to the actual training session to see the results you want to see. All right. So I hope this makes sense what I'm saying. You have to make sure you're willing to put in the prerequisite work before you even put in the prerequisite work. That's the only way for that time frame and that window to maximize itself and give you the fruits of your labor that you are looking for. All right. So are you training before you train? And then how are you training before you train? If you focus and tweak those 2 things before you actually go into your training, whatever it is, if it's running, if it's jogging, if it's cross training, if it's fit workouts, if it's yoga, whatever it might be, if it's nutrition classes, whatever it is, I promise you, if you do the pre-training, then the training will take care of itself and you'll get to your goals the way in which you want to achieve them in the proper time frame, as opposed to delayed and a lot of anguish. All right. I look forward to talking to you guys soon. If you have questions, please leave comments. We'll go from there. All right. Talk to you guys later.